Welcome back to the Raider D podcast. Today, brothers and sisters of the Raider Nation, we're going to be talking about offseason draft picks as well as free agency. Right now, we are still going through the GM process. We are still going through the head coaching process. That remains to see, and that could affect how I see the offseason going, depending if we end up with Harbaugh or we end up with Pierce. And that's really just at the quarterback position. But we will leave that to another video once those decisions have been made. Right now, we're going to be jumping into the draft and the free agency. Now, I'm going to be doing these kind of simultaneously by the most positions of need that we need. So make sure you stick tuned to this video to the end because this is going to be fun. All right, guys. So here we go. We're going to jump into the draft. We have pick number 13. Now, I understand a lot of people want to sell the farm and go and get Jayden Daniels. They want to go and get Caleb Williams, maybe even Drake May. I disagree with that 1,000% because that's not going to solve the glaring issue that the Raiders have, which is our offensive line or lack thereof. We are going to lose Jermaine Illuminor. He's really not – he did better this year, but he's really not worth the price to bring him back to get into a bidding war in the free agency. I say let him go and let's replace him in the draft. Now, in the draft, we're going tackle position at pick number 13 if my guy falls into our lap. There are some big name tackles that are coming out. Everybody has heard of Joe Alt. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. He is out of Notre Dame. He is an absolute stud, but he is a left tackle. But then we're also looking at Olu Fashanu, and he's also a left tackle. He is an absolute brawler stud. He's going to be a Pro Bowl tackler. Him and Joe Alt are going to be Pro Bowl tackles for probably many, many years in the NFL. They are that good. We're not getting those guys. They're going to go probably pick 4 or 5 and maybe pick 8 or 9 or 10, maybe even 11 or 12. But I do believe my guy, my number one pick for right tackle, which is a glaring need that we have because we have to replace Jermaine Illuminor, and that's Tuleise Fuaga out of Oregon State. This dude is an absolute brawler. He loves to hit people. He loves to run block. He is mean. He's aggressive. He looks scary like a Raider. We definitely got to get him. If he drops to our lap in pick number 13, it is a no-brainer whatsoever. You pick up Fuaga out of Oregon State, and that becomes our next 10 to 15-year right tackle anchor. He doesn't have any real injury issues to be worried about. So I say we pick up Fuaga. It's a no-brainer. Now we've locked down the right tackle position. Now let's jump over into the free agency for depth pieces. Coming out is Trent Brown. Right now he's playing for the Patriots, but he's going to be a free agency. He is a former Raider. He got the big payday from the Raiders, but then he had a lot of injury issues. Here's the thing with Trent Brown. When he is healthy, he is an absolute stud and anchor on that right side of the offensive line. We're going to get him back to the Raiders, who he's familiar with, for very cheap. Much, much cheaper than what we were paying him when he was with us in the beginning of his career. So I say we definitely go out, pick up Trent Brown, bring him back to the Raiders, make him a rotational piece, save his body so that he can stay healthy, and then when he is out there, he's an absolute stud. And he'll also be a good, influence and coach for our rookie Fuaga, hopefully. Now, at the same time, we need a depth piece for Miller on the left side, on our left tackle side. And that's Tyron Smith coming out of the Cowboys. Now, Trent Brown is 30. Tyron Smith is 33. He's getting a little bit up there in age. He is towards the end of his career, but he is still very effective. He's one of the strongest left tackles in the NFL. He's been a perennial Pro Bowler. Whether or not we can get him to leave the Cowboys, because it does seem like he wants to finish his career in Dallas, but playoff run, potential Super Bowl run. Give him a better paycheck. We have the cap room to do it. We might be able to bring him in and make him that rotational piece. And that would be absolutely amazing to have that type of depth to our two most important positions, which is the left tackle and the right tackle position. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the guards and the centers because those you can typically pick up in the draft in the 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds of the draft. There's also going to be quite a few of them out in free agency that we can pick up for free. Most of them, none of you have ever really heard of, and neither have I. So I'm not really going to address the guard position. We'll pick that up in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds of the draft and free agency and build into that depth there. Again, we also still have Thayer Munford under contract, so he's not going anywhere as well, though I'm not a big fan of his. He's kind of hit and miss. So we do need to upgrade there, and I believe that we will. So that then takes us back to the 2nd round. Now, in the 2nd round, we have two options, and that's really going to be if JJ McCarthy drops to us in the second round, we pick him up. If Bo Nix drops to us in the 2nd round, then we pick him up with our 2nd round pick. And this is going to give us depth at quarterback because, again, at the end of by June 1st, we're only going to have one quarterback on the roster. Hoyer's not going to be there, and Garoppolo's not going to be there. So it's AOC. So we need to bring in two more quarterbacks so that we have depth in the quarterback room. We draft them. Now, here's the beautiful thing about J.J. McCarthy that a lot of people don't understand. He's a mobile quarterback. He's pretty quick. The rumor is that he has a 4.4 40. Now, we'll see when he goes to the scouting, right, what his actual running is. But he is a mobile quarterback. There's no doubt about that. And he's fairly accurate. He's got a pretty good deep ball. He's not as probably flashy and fast as a Jayden Daniels, but again, I'm against us selling the farm to get a quarterback in the top 3, and Jayden Daniels is probably going to be the 3rd quarterback drafted, and he'll probably be picked number 4 or 5. So he'll be off the board. It would take 3 first-round draft picks, at least 2, and probably a 2nd and a 3rd or some craziness like that. We're just not willing to do that. It's not worth it. Jayden Daniels is very skinny, and he could get demolished in the NFL and be injury-prone like all the other mobile quarterbacks this year other than C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud was even out for 2 games under, I believe, concussion. So we use our 2nd-round draft pick. We pick up J.J. McCarthy. He's got a national championship under his belt. He'll be a great depth piece for AOC. Let them battle it out to see who's going to be the face of the franchise. I think that would put us in a really good position. Now, if neither one of those guys are available in the 2nd round, if they've already been taken off the board by then and we haven't moved up to go and get them, that's fine. We address defensive tackle position. We need some depth there. Adam Butler is really good. He did a really good job. Tyree Wilson is kind of becoming an inside guy. Definitely not a nose tackle kind of guy, but he has moved kind of into the interior, and then he'll kind of be a depth piece in case Crosby goes down or Malcolm Kuntz to relieve him a little bit. But we still need some more depth at that defensive tackle position, and I say that we draft a defensive tackle in the 2nd round. There's some good ones that are coming out. We could also wait and do that in the 3rd round, and we could go and get a cornerback, which is also a need. We do need some depth in the cornerback room as well. So either of those, we just basically we go defense. Either it's going to be a defensive tackle or we bring in a cornerback. Now moving over to the free agency, the exciting part of that is, and we have the money to do this. And if we do this, do we go from a top 10 defense to a top 3 defense. And that is the Kansas City Chiefs, Chris Jones, defensive tackle, amazing, crazy, scary guy that we need on the Raiders. He has been disrespected by the Kansas City Chiefs last year, the year before. Like, they just don't want to pay this guy, and he is probably the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL. He has certainly wrecked the Raiders ever since he came into the NFL, every single time we've had to play him. And and he's available. He's going to be a free agent. And it's going to be a bidding war because he wants to get paid. And Kansas City doesn't have the money. Their salary cap is terrible, which is why they haven't want to pay him in the past. We have the money. Let's go spend it, right? Let's stay cheap on the quarterback so that we can go out and get a Chris Jones. Now, if we bring in Chris Jones, obviously he's going to be the starter. He's probably going to end up with 10-plus sacks a year. He's fantastic against the run, puts quarterback pressures. That's definitely the way that we go. He is probably going to cost us $20 million plus a year. But hey, we got like $45 million in cap space, so we can afford to bring in Chris Jones, and that is should be our number one goal, is to bring him in. Now, there are some other defensive tackles out there as well. There's a defensive tackle from the Bengals, DJ Reed, I believe is his last name. Pretty decent option. He had a little bit of injury history, but we could probably go get him. He'll be cheaper, obviously, than Chris Jones. But my pick is we go get Chris Jones and just solidify a top 3 defense, and we just wreck everybody the Raider way in 2024 on our road to a Super Bowl. Moving into like the 3rd and the 4th round draft picks, there's going to be a couple of different options there. I say that we need to go, again, offensive guard or center. And usually you can get a guard and a center can be interchangeable. Usually if they played guard or center in college, they're going to be able to do it in the NFL. How good, that remains to be seen. But that's typically where you're going to see your guards and your centers, is really in that 3rd and 4th round. That's where the good ones are going to be. And so we go and we pick up one of those with our 3rd round draft pick. And then the remaining other draft picks, we're just going to bring in some depth pieces, possibly bring in a running back. We're possibly going to bring in another wide receiver just to add some depth. We need to get out of Hunter Renfro's contract, so let's trade him. Maybe we get a 5th round draft pick, maybe a 6th round draft pick for him. If we're lucky, maybe a 4th. And then we can just really, re-up on that and bring in some more depth at the wide receiver room. As far as, everything else that we have possible out there, I think that's the main things that we need to address. Is we have to solidify that offensive line. We need to bring depth to the quarterback position by drafting JJ McCarthy or a Bo Nix, and then let them and AOC kind of battle it out. We need to bring in Chris Jones. That should be priority number 1, is outbid everybody. I don't care how much we have to spend. If we have the money, spend it. Bring in Chris Jones. Bring in depth pieces to that offensive line with a Tyron Smith if we can get him. Alalric Jackson also is going to be available free agent, and then Trent Brown. Those are 3 tackles that will bring depth and upgrade our offensive line right away. Definitely want to get Tuleise Fuaga out of Oregon State with our 1st round draft pick and really anchor down for the next 10 years that right tackle position. And then, we may even, if we work everything right and we do some trades and this and that, we may even be able to get Amarius Mims as well, because I believe that he will fall towards the end of the 1st round, beginning of the 2nd round. He's another tackle that is really, really good. With that, guys, let me know what you think. Who is your number 1 pick? Drop a comment down below. Who do you think we should get with pick number 13, or should we trade it? Or should we trade the farm and go get Caleb Williams or Jayden Daniels or somebody else? See you guys in the next Raider D podcast.